A ballistic missile hit a training unit of the ground forces. Crimea is out of fuel, and there are new strikes on Russia's oil and gas infrastructure. This and more in today's TSN broadcast at 7:30 p.m. I'm Irina Kondrachuk. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, give us a like, and comment on what you found most interesting. And here are a few more topics from this episode. Over 500 drones, as well as missiles and artillery, struck Zaporizhzhia over the past day.
The enemy has upgraded their equipment. We know how to deal with this.
Why are the Russians terrorizing the regional center? The president of Ukraine spoke at the UN General Assembly in New York.
There are no guarantees except for friends and weapons.
What security guarantees can Ukraine expect? From a trendy club to a drone school, former bartenders and FPV pilots.
We were the first in the country to create a streaming system with a gimbal.
How do pizza and a creative approach change the rules of this war? Russia carried out a combined strike on a training unit. This was reported by the Ukrainian ground forces. Among the means of attack were 2 Iskander ballistic missiles. The enemy hit a shelter. There are casualties among the personnel. Emergency services are working at the scene. All necessary assistance is being provided to the wounded. Around 1 o'clock in the afternoon, explosions were heard in Dnipro. Earlier, monitoring channels had warned of a ballistic missile threat. After the strike, a large column of smoke rose up. A fire broke out on the outskirts of the city. There is currently no information about casualties. Zaporizhzhia is being attacked by drones. There are dead and wounded. In the Vasilkivsky district, an explosive device fell on a private house where a 68-year-old woman was at the time. She was killed. And in the Polohi district, an elderly couple was injured as a result of a drone strike. The wounded are under medical supervision. 18 kamikaze drones attacked Kharkiv last night. The main enemy strike targeted an energy infrastructure facility. There were interruptions in electricity and water supply. A 24-year-old man was hospitalized with an explosive injury. Fires caused by the strikes were also extinguished in Chuhuiv. A 38-year-old woman was injured there. A resident of the village of Shipuvate was also hospitalized after a strike by drones. In Kostiantynivka, which is in Donetsk region, the occupiers killed 2 civilians and wounded 5 others. 7 apartment buildings, private houses, shops and cars came under attack. 1 person was killed and 2 were injured in Ilinivka, and another person was wounded in Sloviansk. During the day in Kherson, drones attacked the city hospital. 3 staff members of the facility were injured. In Vilozerka, a local resident was injured, and in Berislav, doctors are saving a married couple. The woman was injured by explosives dropped from a drone, and when her husband was taking her to the hospital, their car hit a mine. At night, the occupiers deliberately targeted the old buildings of Kherson. The houses caught fire one after another.
Well, that's it. Everything burned down, girl.
You nothing left? Point going?
No. To your relative's place? There.
No, nothing.
The windows have been blown out for the 3rd time already. You see, the windows have been blown out for the 3rd time now. I didn't sleep at all. And then at 4 in the morning, I suddenly hear a noise in the yard.
2 people were killed and 15 wounded in Zaporizhzhia region today. The enemy struck the region nearly 700 times. Almost 500 drones flew in, and artillery, missiles, and aviation were also used. In recent days, the Russians have been massively attacking the regional center with bombs from aircraft more and more. Daria Nazarova will tell us about the consequences.
Today, around midnight, the Russians once again attacked Zaporizhzhia with high-explosive aerial bombs in the Shevchenkivsky district of the city. A Russian piece of metal fell near the botanical garden. The blast wave damaged the houses across the street, and a fire broke out there. Another bomb fell on a neighboring street but did not detonate.
We have broken windows, we have damaged roofs, but today it should be noted that there is no serious destruction, no demolitions. The houses were not badly affected.
For 3 days in a row, the occupiers have been terrorizing Zaporizhzhia and its residents, dropping high-explosive aerial bombs. For the first time, the regional center was hit by aviation back in September 2024, but there haven't been such massive attacks for a long time. Just in the past few days, more than 20 such bombs have been dropped on the city.
For the first time, the enemy has upgraded its means. Secondly, for example, On the night from Sunday to Monday, the enemy carried out a massive shelling that hadn't happened before. They immediately launched 15 KABs within a 20-minute span, which is a lot. 6 were shot down, 9 reached the target, and 1 fell in a field, damaged. So there are 2 reasons. We know how to deal with this. In the morning, there was a conversation with the commander of the Air Force, and after that, a conversation with the Prime Minister of Ukraine. In a few days, I will be able to report more.
They strike peaceful areas both day and night, not just with guided aerial bombs. They also launch attack drones at the city. Yesterday during the day, the occupiers attacked Zaporizhzhia with 4 Shaheds and 1 missile. They hit warehouse facilities and cars belonging to Zaporizhzhia residents that were parked nearby. 15 residents sought medical assistance. 1 person died at the scene. A 30-year-old man was severely wounded and died in the hospital. In total, Russian attacks over these 3 days have claimed the lives of 5 Zaporizhzhia residents. Daria Nazarova, Andriy Kupovka, Zaporizhzhia, TSN. 1+1.
Explosions, fires, and blackouts that are hard to hide, several Russian regions today came under attack by unidentified drones. Despite assurances from the Russian authorities that all drones over the Kursk region were shot down, there are reports of widespread power outages in Lvov. Almost the entire city was left without electricity, and reports of explosions and resulting power supply issues are also coming from Ryalsk in Russia. Due to the drone attack, an alert was declared in the Rostov region, and in the Krasnodar region, airport operations were even halted. There, a naval base in Novorossiysk came under attack, and the offices of the Caspian Pipeline Consortium, which is responsible for shipping Russian oil to the Shadow Fleet, were also hit. The enemy tried to shoot down drones right over the city, which resulted in damage to residential buildings and cars catching fire in parking lots. Propaganda channels report that there are dead and wounded. Russian officials claim that they shot down 70 drones. And the General Staff has confirmed fresh explosions in Bashkiria. Just like a few days ago, drones struck an oil refinery. One of the most powerful in Russia, the Gazprom Neftekhim Salavat plant. The distance from the Ukrainian border to it is almost 1,500 kilometers. A column of black smoke rises above the refinery, visible from dozens of kilometers away. A pedestrian peninsula. As of today, there is no gasoline in Crimea. Fuel has disappeared from almost all gas stations. Local drivers and visitors to the Ukrainian Republic annexed by Russia have been lining up in long queues at gas stations since morning, hoping that gasoline will eventually be delivered somewhere. However, photos from Crimea show that only diesel fuel and gas are available there. There is already information emerging that in Telegram Crimeans are creating channels where they share information about where fuel is available. But even there, it disappears very quickly, because those who manage to get to the pumps with 92, 95, or even the most expensive 100-octane gasoline fill not only their tanks but also buy several extra canisters. And because of this kind of feverish buying, the fuel runs out within an hour or 2. There is also information that, due to collusion, some empty gas stations simply close down to avoid paying salaries to their employees. The fuel shortage in Russia is being observed in at least 12.5 regions. It has lasted for more than 3 weeks, but it was the occupied Crimea that became the first place where gasoline completely disappeared. The cause of the crisis in Russia itself is said to be the attacks by Ukrainian drones, which have been successfully striking the enemy's oil refineries on its own territory. The cost of the Kursk operation turned out to be too high, and the tactical breakthrough did not bring the expected success. Former Commander-in-Chief Valery Zaluzhny has spoken for the first time about the Kursk operation carried out by his successor, Alexander Syrsky. Experience has shown that an isolated tactical breakthrough on a narrow section of the front does not bring the necessary success, Zaluzhny wrote in an article for the publication Mirror of the Week. He added that although he does not know the exact cost of such actions, it is clear that it was too high. Zaluzhny also recalled his own unsuccessful offensive in the summer of 2023. At first, the plan for this offensive, written by the former commander-in-chief, somehow ended up in Russia, and then the operation turned into a reality show that was commented on in real time. In his opinion, the reason for the failure was the lack of a decisive advantage over the enemy, because there were simply not enough forces and resources for such an offensive. I still painfully feel the failure of these plans, Zaluzhny admitted, adding that since the fall of 2022, combat operations in the Donbas have taken on a positional character, In fact, Zaluzhny writes, Ukrainian and Russian troops have become bogged down in a positional stalemate, similar to the situation in World War I. On the front, the Russians captured the village of Novomykolaivka in the Dnipropetrovsk region and Novoivanivka in Zaporizhzhia. This is reported by analysts from the DeepState project, and this is despite the fact that as recently as the weekend, fierce battles were raging for both of these settlements. Despite heavy losses, the intensity of the enemy's assault operations does not decrease. The Dnipro Operational Strategic Group of Troops has publicly reported another attempt to break through on the eastern section of the front. When using 15 tanks, APCs, and other armored vehicles supported by infantry on buggies and motorcycles, the Russians advanced to the front line. About 100 occupiers were immediately destroyed here along with their equipment. But a more effective tactic used by the enemy is infiltrating numerous small groups of 1 or 2 soldiers into populated areas. It is precisely this kind of entrenchment and bringing up of reserves that allows the Russians to capture Ukrainian villages. The enemy also does not stop trying to break through to the administrative border between Luhansk and Donetsk regions. The most difficult areas remain the Pokrovsk and Lyman directions. In total, since the beginning of the day, the General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine has recorded 80 clashes along the entire front line. Friends and weapons are the main guarantees of security in today's world. Want security? Arm yourself. International law doesn't work. Not until your influential friends truly support you. With these words, the President of Ukraine addressed the UN General Assembly, which is taking place this week in New York, and also warned about the advent of aerial drones capable of penetrating almost anywhere and causing significant damage. He announced that Ukraine knows how to make them and has the capability to produce them. So he invited anyone interested to cooperate. TSN's own correspondent in the USA, Olha Kosholenko, has more details coming up.
Frankly speaking, weapons and influential friends, not international law, are the main guarantees of security in today's world. Stepping up to the main podium of the United Nations, an organization meant to embody the rule of law based on clear rules, the President of Ukraine shared his experience of 3.5 years of war. Only weapons determine who will survive. No international institutions will truly help.
As you well know, international law does not fully work if you don't have powerful friends who genuinely want to support you. And even that doesn't work without weapons. It's terrible, but without it, things would be even worse. There are no security guarantees except for friends and weapons.
Even membership in military alliances is not a guarantee, Zelensky says. NATO countries like Poland and Estonia, where Russian drones have flown in, have already realized this. It is precisely drones, the President of Ukraine is convinced, that are becoming the main modern weapon. Even countries that have long been under sanctions, such as Iran and North Korea, are capable of producing them. Technologies are developing at an incredibly fast pace. Drones that are capable of shooting down other drones are already being developed. They are capable of penetrating borders over long distances, and artificial intelligence makes drones a universal weapon even without direct human involvement. Zelensky reminded about the experience of the Ukrainian Operation Web, as a result of which relatively inexpensive drones destroyed costly Russian strategic bombers. This is the modern reality that Putin has brought. Ukraine now has significant experience in this field and is open to cooperation.
We are ready to make our modern weapons, your modern security, your weapons. We have decided to open up arms exports. These are powerful systems that have been tested in real war at a time when all international institutions have failed. We are ready to develop our defense production together with strong partners so that their defense will be modern and reliable. You don't need to start this race from scratch. We are ready to share what has already proven itself in real defense.
And while weapons are important, there is also a place for diplomacy. Today in Napolicon, a meeting of the so-called Crimean platform is taking place, which was established back in 2021. It has united governments, international organizations, parliaments, and the expert community that oppose the forcible change of state borders. This is what Russia is doing. Reporting from New York, United States, Olha Kosholenko, Maxim Shinkarenko, TSN 1+1.
Do you share the President's views, and what do you expect from diplomacy? Be sure to leave your thoughts in the comments under this broadcast on YouTube, and of course like and subscribe to our channel. In the meantime, I will continue with the TSN broadcast. To shoot down or not to shoot down? The opinions of American politicians on what NATO countries should do with Russian aircraft have diverged dramatically. At a meeting with the president of Ukraine, the president stated that NATO countries should shoot down Russian planes if they enter their airspace, when asked an unspecified question about whether he would support it. At the same time, Donald Trump stated that everything would depend on the circumstances. Meanwhile, the U.S. Secretary of State emphasized that Russian aircraft over alliance airspace would only be shot down if they attack. At the same time, the Polish Prime Minister stated today that his country is warning Russia that their aircraft will be shot down if they violate the airspace. Let me remind you, in recent weeks there have been several high-profile incidents involving Russian aircraft. In particular, they violated Estonian territory and flew near a Polish NATO platform. Overall, Russians have rarely violated the airspace of other countries. Donald Trump, disappointed by Vladimir Putin's actions and the Kremlin leader, is himself to blame for this. This was stated on the air of the United News Marathon by David Kramer, executive director of the George W. Bush Institute. According to him, Putin continued to bomb Ukrainian territories immediately after the meeting in Alaska. Moreover, Russian planes and drones have repeatedly violated the airspace of NATO member countries. In response, Trump unexpectedly began to say that Ukraine is capable of winning the war and even regaining its territories. As for the state of the Russian economy, it is poor. David Kramer emphasized that such statements may indicate an improvement in relations between Washington and Kiev.
I think the crucial question for all astute observers is whether this significant change will genuinely last, and whether it will truly mean concrete, tangible, and decisive real steps that President Donald Trump will ultimately take, particularly regarding increased and substantial military support for Ukraine. He said that he would do something, and whether he will do this through NATO, or strengthen sanctions against Russia, or impose tariffs, or put pressure on the European Union to stop importing Russian energy resources.
By 2027, Europe will definitely be done with Russian fuel. Such a statement was made by the President of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, after meeting with Trump on the sidelines of the UN General Assembly. The Kremlin's aggressive war against Ukraine became the top topic of conversation between the two officials. Together with the American president, von der Leyen wrote on social media, they agreed on the need to reduce Russia's revenues from fossil fuels. And that's exactly why Europe is now working on the 19th package of sanctions, which will target liquefied natural gas at processing plants, including those in third countries. Separately, the head of the European Commission also spoke with Trump about Ukrainian children deported to Russia. They agreed that, together with the United States, they would work side by side to bring them back. Another topic of conversation with the US leader was Russia's recent provocations, incursions into European airspace. Ursula von der Leyen stated that they are working to strengthen the eastern flank. In Slovakia, in 24 cities, there was a massive anti-government protest against the Russian collaborator Fico. Several thousand people took part in the demonstration in the city center. The main grievance of the protesters against the current prime minister of the country, Robert Fico, is his cooperation with Russia, as well as failures in economic management and tax increases. At the NATO rally, people held signs that read, "Fico is Moscow's Trojan horse." There was outrage over his meeting with Vladimir Putin in China, which took place after the start of the full-scale invasion of Ukraine. Many representatives of the Slovak opposition were also present at the protest. The leader of the largest opposition party, Progressive Slovakia, Michal Šimečka, stated that Fico has long since lost touch with the people. From a trendy establishment to one of the first UAV units and drone pilot schools in Ukraine. This story began in Dnipro in February 2022, when the Module Club closed its doors and everyone, from the owners to the bartenders, joined the ranks of the 128th Mountain Assault Brigade. They immediately went into the infantry, and since they had experience working with drones, they initiated the creation of a UAV unit. How does this creative approach change the rules of this war? Anastasia will tell us more about it.
They stop in the courtyard of their club, looking at the notes on the building that were left on the day it closed. And a bit theatrically, they invite each other inside. Where there were once art events, now there is only chaos and ruins. Since the start of the full-scale invasion, the guys have only been here a few times when they were taking equipment, metal and boards to the front. But among the remnants of their former life, there are still things dear to their hearts.
This is actually a flyer for the very first rock music event that I personally organized within the entire club. And this flyer and poster were actually drawn by my friend and comrade Kalo, who was killed.
Now Oleg is running different events and has a different audience.
You need to hold down this button while connecting the cable.
For over a year now, I have been a medic by profession, a neonatologist, and by calling, I help my comrades operate drones. He recalls that he started out as a combat medic and soon after became an operator. At first, it was a reconnaissance drone, and then...
They told me, come on, now you're not just working as a medic. In 2 days, they explained something to me, and we went to work in combat conditions. Well, basically, I somehow learned on the job during combat.
Ole's comrade Mikita, who until 2022 was a co-owner of the club, says that it was thanks to the music community that they got their first drones. They learned on the go, and the results soon followed.
We were the first in the country to create a streaming system with a direct feed to the headquarters. That is, it was the 231st Battalion that did this back in May of 2022. And we were probably the first in the Territorial Defense Forces to create active crews that worked with FPV drones.
Over the years, the unit of the 28th Brigade's Bipolasto module has destroyed quite a lot of Russian equipment and occupiers themselves.
Come on, module, show us, module.
Since the need for drones kept growing and there weren't enough specialists, we decided to address this with these drone operators. A school was needed.
We went to the brigade commander and suggested creating a training center. And he said, go ahead and do it. Why didn't you do it a year ago? People connected to the music community are helping us. And thanks to them, we managed to gather most of the equipment.
The soldiers are learning to fly using laptops with software simulators. Most of them have been in service for a long time, and they took up this new specialty after being wounded.
At first, it can be quite challenging and difficult, but during the entire learning process, and as you gradually start operating the drone itself, it certainly gets much easier. You see with your own hands how it's done.
Next comes the most difficult and most responsible moment, the first flights. It doesn't work out right away. The forest clearing is not the easiest place. However, instructors say it won't get any easier during combat missions.
You know, the idea really sticks with you, and in this case you really need it.
In a year of the school's operation, several hundred drone operators have been trained. After the forests and tents, the home club for the soldiers of the 128th feels like a journey into the past. Here.
Almost nothing has truly changed in these past 3.5 years. The cup is still in the exact same place where it was left.
This place will never be the same as before, because some of their fellow comrades have already been killed. However, Mikita says that he and his friends have made a decision. With the arrival of peace, the club will be revived.
If there are indeed people, that is the absolute main thing, to preserve the people so that they can return safely.
Anastasia Nevirna, Vladislav Komishin, Zaporizhzhia, Dnipro, TSN. 1+1.